When you walk down the aisle of a modern grocery store, you operate on a quiet assumption. You trust that the ingredients on the label are accurate and that the food you buy is safe to eat. But in an American grocery store in the early 1900s, that trust was non-existent. This was an era of heavy food adulteration, an unregulated landscape where manufacturers routinely laced everyday products with toxic chemicals to increase shelf life. The milk delivered to your door was often watered down. To hide the thin texture, dairies added chalk for whiteness, and to prevent spoilage, they stirred in formaldehyde. Meat was treated with the same chemicals used by morticians, sold openly as embalmed beef. Even ketchup was altered, with industrial coal tar dyes used to mimic the color of fresh tomatoes. These additives weren't accidental. Industry leaders deliberately chose them to cut costs and mask rotting ingredients, prioritizing the appearance and shelf life of a product over the health of the person eating it. At the time, federal regulators had no power to intervene. There was no FDA, and the government remained passive while the food industry operated without oversight. Harvey Wiley, the chief chemist of the USDA, saw the damage these chemicals were doing. But he also knew that academic papers and lab results alone would never overcome the influence of corporate lobbyists in Washington. To force Congress to act, Wiley decided on a radical shift in strategy. If the government wouldn't listen to chemistry, he would show them the biological toll by intentionally feeding these toxins to human beings. He recognized that breaking the political gridlock required more than data. It required undeniable, visceral evidence of how these additives affected the human body. In 1902, Wiley established a dining room in the basement of the USDA. Its official name was the Hygienic Table. The subjects were 12 young male volunteers, mostly government employees. They took pride in their roles, wearing badges identifying them as the Poison Squad. This was a rigorous clinical study. The men were forbidden from alcohol or tobacco and required to consume every portion. Wiley's team tracked everything, recording daily weight, temperature, and samples to monitor how chemicals moved through their systems. This humiliating, relentless tracking was designed to turn anecdotal stomach aches into a scientific ledger of toxicity that the industry could not refute. The men were served standard meals secretly laced with industrial doses of boric acid, salicylic acid, sulfuric acid, and copper sulfate. The physical deterioration was swift. Boric acid caused severe nausea, stomach pain, and significant weight loss. As the experiment progressed, medical exams began to show evidence of kidney damage. Formaldehyde proved even more dangerous. It caused extreme vomiting, forcing Wiley to halt the experiment for men whose health had deteriorated too significantly to continue. The results left no room for doubt. The chemical additives commonly found in the average American diet were not just unappealing, they were actively destroying human organ systems. Journalists soon discovered the basement dining room. They branded the volunteers human guinea pigs, and stories about the squad began to appear in newspapers across the country. This media coverage translated Wiley's clinical data into widespread public outrage. Families who had been buying these products for years were suddenly confronted with the reality of what was in their kitchens. By turning a quiet scientific study into a household name, Wiley weaponized public fear, creating a political environment where ignoring food safety was no longer an option for Congress. Under the weight of this public pressure, Congress passed the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. The law established two major requirements. It mandated honest labeling of ingredients and prohibited the sale of adulterated or poisoned food. This legislation served as the starting point for federal food regulation, leading directly to the formation of the modern FDA. It began a shift in the American regulatory philosophy. While it would take decades for the law to fully mature, the 1906 Act established the precedent that the government had a right and a duty to ensure the safety of the food supply. Wiley's foundation expanded over the following decades. By 1958, the Delaney Clause was added, creating a strict ban on any food additive found to cause cancer. Today, the FDA's reach is vast, regulating over $2.8 trillion in consumer products. It acts as a permanent barrier between the consumer and the industrial practices Wiley fought to expose. The 12 volunteers of the Poison Squad understood the stakes. Despite the physical toll, they took pride in their work. Knowing their suffering was the price of a safer future. The invisible safety we enjoy in the modern grocery store is not a historical accident. It is a protection earned by a chemist and 12 men who were willing to eat poison to prove a point.